Hey everyone, it's Brandon with Century Defense. Today I want to talk about dry fire, what some of the things that you can practice in dry fire, what I think is useful, some of the things I don't think you can practice in dry fire, or some of the mistakes that I see people making in dry fire. So the first thing I want to talk about is drawing the gun. So obviously everybody wants to practice drawing the gun, and I think that's a great thing to practice. There's a bunch of different types of draws that you can do. Standing draw, like what you just saw, maybe a seated draw, so if you're starting from a seated position. A step draw, so stepping from the left or to the right during the draw stroke. Unloaded draws, so if you have the gun in the holster or if it's a table start and you have to pick up the gun and load the gun, definitely want to practice that during dry fire. There's anything like with hands up or turn draw or anything like that, something that you might see inside of a match, you obviously want to practice that in dry fire right before a match. Other things that you can practice, I think, are reloads are a great thing to practice. I always need work on reloads, so I always try to incorporate that into my dry fire. Whenever I'm doing reloads, what I want to make sure that I'm going to do is getting a good index on the magazine, and I am fully having the magazine inside my hand, and I'm watching those first two rounds go into the mag well and making sure it's perfect. You can practice a step left or a step right. Obviously, for right-handed shooters, like a stepping left would be a little bit more difficult reload, so I want to practice those a little bit more. You can do like holding reloads where you're holding the gun, waiting to get to that position and then do the reload. Another good thing I want to do during reloads is making sure that I'm not creating any bad habits. So I see a lot of people, they put like towels down or they put like some type of couch in front of them. And whenever they do the reload, they shove the gun out there in order for the magazine to fall on the couch. Sometimes that creates bad habits, and inside of a live fire match, you'll see them do that right before they do a reload. So just be careful with that one. Transitions is another great thing to practice during dry fire. This has really helped me. Whenever I am moving the gun, I want to make sure that my eyes move before the gun moves. I don't want to be looking through the scope, so it's kind of break that habit. During dry fire, if you possibly can, try to put those targets out as far as possible. That will make sure that you will catch yourself if your eyes are staying inside that scope or looking at the glass. I want to make sure that I'm way out and target focused and my eyes are just moving, then the gun moves, all right? Some of the other mistakes that I see people make and some of the things I don't think you can practice is like trigger control. So some people you sit there and press a trigger and re-rack the gun and all that stuff. Sometimes it doesn't always transition over to live fire. So I think trigger control is definitely a live fire thing, and practice that at the range. Other mistakes I see people making is going way too fast during dry fire. So whenever you're dry firing, I always say do 80% of your reps at 50% speed, all right? So just like what you saw just now, I had a 2-second par time on the timer, and whenever that buzzer goes off, I want to draw the gun. On the second buzzer, the hammer should be falling, right? So that's a 2-second par time because technically my draw is supposed to be 1 second, so I double that time. And the timer's just there to keep me honest, right? Because a lot of times you want to go fast. Well, sometimes if you're going fast, you can't get every little detail out of your dry fire. So make sure you're getting every detail out of it, or you're staying very focused and you're in tune with everything that you're doing, and you're catching all those little mistakes. If you do make a mistake, go ahead and correct it on the next repetition. Sometimes if you go too fast, you won't notice it at all, right? Another thing that I see is practicing for too long of a period of time. So some people will go out there and dry fire for hours at a time. I don't think you can hold that focus for that long of time. Also, like your hand should be hurting if you're dry firing for that long. We should be squeezing the gun as hard as we are whenever we're shooting the gun. So don't get in the bad habit of that. It's just a lot of bad habits can come from dry fire. So be very deliberate about your practice and make sure you're practicing the right things. Malfunctions is the last thing I'll talk about for mistakes. So I see a lot of tactical guys do this. They'll practice malfunctions their whole entire dry fire instead of practicing all the useful things like draw and reload. I don't think the gun's gonna malfunction as much as you're gonna reload the gun or even draw the gun, right? If you are, you probably should get another firearm. But don't focus all of your attention on that. You can do a couple repetitions, but don't make that the majority of your dry fire. Last thing I want to touch on is safety. Make sure that whenever you are dry firing, all the live ammunition is out of the room. That way there's not within arm's reach and we can't accidentally load the gun. We're trying to build good habits, so good habit is loading the gun. So technically that would be a bad thing if you do that during dry fire, right? So make sure it's out of the room, nowhere so they can get loaded in the gun and it can be fired in the same room. All right, that's all I have for dry fire. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.